We live much of our lives in fragments, showing the world only the parts we believe are worthy of being seen. The rest, the anger, the shame, the guilt, the unhealed pain, we quietly hide beneath layers of composure and performance. We call it self-control, maturity, or discipline. But underneath, it is often self-rejection wearing the mask of strength. There exists within every human being an unseen self, a realm that does not fade simply because it has been ignored. It waits in silence, observing, collecting every experience we dismiss or deny, until it becomes the secret architect of our emotions and choices from the moment we learn what is acceptable and what is not. We begin the slow construction of an inner prison. We suppress feelings that could threaten our belonging because survival often depends on adaptation. As children, we learn quickly that anger brings punishment, sadness brings ridicule, and fear brings shame, so we bury them. Yet, emotions do not vanish when buried. They ferment, they grow dense and heavy, shaping the unseen self. The part of us that remembers what the conscious mind refuses to hold. This unseen self is not evil or broken. It is honest. It remembers everything. The moments you swallowed your truth to keep peace, the times you smiled while breaking inside, the years you pretended to be fine, when you were silently drowning. Each act of suppression becomes a stone in the architecture of your hidden identity. And over time, this self begins to live through you, unconsciously shaping your reactions, your relationships, and your sense of reality. You think you are angry at another, but you are really angry at yourself for not being allowed to be whole. The unseen self expresses itself through subtle sabotage. It hides behind the tone you regret using, the jealousy you can't explain, the bitterness that erupts when you least expect it. It is the voice that whispers, "They don't respect you," when in truth, you have not respected your own boundaries. It is the silent energy that pushes people away while claiming to crave connection. Every unhealed wound eventually finds a way to be seen, and the unseen self ensures it will. The problem is that we often recognize it too late, after it has already distorted how we see others and ourselves. In our desperate attempt to appear composed, we betray our authenticity. We wear confidence like armor, but the armor slowly becomes a cage. We confuse detachment with peace and suppression with mastery. But the unseen self never stops longing to be acknowledged. It shows itself through recurring patterns. The same heartbreak, repeating with different faces, the same betrayal wearing new names, the same cycle of disappointment that echoes through years of life. These are not coincidences, they are reflections. The unseen self mirrors itself through every situation that forces us to face what we've denied. When we meet someone who triggers us deeply, we rarely realize that they are reflecting a part of us we've lost or rejected. The irritation, the envy, the silent competition, they are all fragments of the unseen self calling for recognition. The outer world becomes the stage where the inner world reveals its cast of hidden characters, what we call hatred or resentment, is often our psyche's desperate attempt to make us see what we've abandoned within. The people we despise may simply be showing us the emotions we buried long ago. To understand the unseen self is to accept that what is unconscious is not gone. It moves beneath the surface of thought like an underground river shaping the landscape of your life. It is the reason you repeat emotional patterns, the reason you are drawn to familiar pain, the reason you chase validation in the same forms that once wounded you. You cannot truly change until you descend into the unseen and meet the part of you that holds the map to your patterns. Real transformation does not come from positive thinking or affirmations. It comes from honest confrontation with what you fear to feel. The unseen self holds both darkness and light, both the wound and the wisdom. The pain we repress contains information about our boundaries, our needs, and our forgotten strength. What appears as chaos is often the soul's attempt to restore balance. The more we deny this process, the more intense the symptoms become: emotional exhaustion, resentment, burnout, and isolation. The unseen self speaks through discomfort, because that is the only language left when words are denied. It asks not for perfection, but for presence. It asks to be felt, not fixed, because the unseen self is not the enemy, it is the keeper of truth, waiting for the courage of your awareness. There are wounds that bleed and wounds that breathe in silence. The visible ones heal with time, but the hidden ones live beneath the surface, shaping every thought, every reaction, every connection we try to build. The hidden wound is not a single moment of pain. It is a collection of memories buried alive, each one whispering through the cracks of our behavior. We rarely notice it because it does not scream. It disguises itself as personality, as habit, as defense. But beneath all the layers of control, the wound remains, waiting for acknowledgement, waiting to be seen. The hidden wound begins the moment pain meets denial. Something inside us hurts, but we cannot afford to feel it, so we bury it under logic, pride, or distraction. We call it moving on, but we are really moving away from ourselves. The body remembers what the mind refuses to feel. The nervous system tightens, the heart builds walls, and the soul begins to echo the same H through different experiences. We mistake these echoes for fate, when in truth they are reminders. The wound does not seek revenge, it seeks release. Until it is felt, it will continue to project its story through every corner of our lives. You can see the hidden wound in the person who laughs the loudest but cannot tolerate silence. You can see it in the one who avoids closeness because closeness feels dangerous. You can see it in the achiever who collects success as proof of worthiness, yet feels empty when the applause fades. Pain becomes identity. When it is left unresolved, we start living through our wounds, not from our wholeness. We become the child who learned that love must be earned, now grown into the adult who confuses exhaustion with connection. We become the one who fears rejection, but unconsciously recreates it again and again, just to confirm what the wound already believes. The hidden wound often hides behind pride. We say we do not care, but the truth is we care too deeply. We say we are over it, but we build our lives around not being hurt again. The avoidance itself is proof that the wound still breathes. Every time we suppress a feeling, we give it more power in the dark. The unconscious mind stores every unfelt emotion as energy that must go somewhere. It seeps into our relationships, our self-talk, our choices. We call it bad luck or emotional triggers, but these are simply the ways the wound tries to remind us it exists. Pain that is denied becomes shadow energy. It no longer belongs to conscious awareness, but it drives behavior from underneath. It makes us jealous when we should be inspired, defensive when we should be open, controlling when we should be trusting. It builds barriers where bridges could have been. This is how the hidden wound quietly dictates the course of life. Not as an enemy, but as an unhealed teacher. The longer it remains unseen, the louder it must become. It manifests through patterns that repeat until recognition replaces avoidance. We often say time heals all wounds, but time alone only buries them deeper. Healing requires confrontation, a willingness to sit in discomfort without running from it. It means tracing anger back to its original heartbreak, tracing fear back to its first betrayal, tracing insecurity back to the moment we stopped feeling safe within ourselves. This journey is not about blame, it is about awareness. The wound is not asking for an apology, it is asking to be felt. To feel it fully is to disarm it. When we finally face it, the energy it once used to protect us can transform into wisdom. The hidden wound shapes the lens through which we see others. It makes us overreact to criticism, withdraw from love, or chase people who mirror our pain. When someone triggers us, it is rarely because of what they said. It is because they touched the edge of our unhealed memory. We defend ourselves not against them, but against the possibility of feeling that old pain again. The wound convinces us that we are protecting ourselves, but we are really imprisoning ourselves in an old emotional story. The more we resist it, the more life will bring us mirrors to reveal it. What we avoid internally returns to us externally until we finally turn inward. In truth, the hidden wound is a doorway, not a curse. It contains the fragments of who we once were before the world taught us to hide. It holds the innocence that felt too much, the vulnerability that longed for understanding, the sensitivity that was shamed into silence. The wound's purpose is not to destroy, but to remind. It carries the message that there is still something within us that needs love, not analysis. The pain is only the language it uses to call us home. Once we stop running from it, we realize it has always been trying to guide us back to the parts of ourselves we abandoned long ago. Every person we meet reflects something within us, whether we realize it or not. The world is not just a collection of separate individuals moving through space. It is a vast network of mirrors reflecting the hidden landscapes of our inner world. The people who fascinate us, irritate us, or wound us are not random encounters. They are symbolic messengers of the psyche, showing us what we have yet to understand about ourselves. Every attraction and every aversion reveals something about our own consciousness, something we either long to embrace or refuse to accept from the earliest moments of life. Our sense of identity forms through reflection. As children, we look into the eyes of caregivers to know who we are. When we see love, we feel lovable. When we see disappointment, we internalize shame. Over time, those reflections shape the foundation of self-perception. But as we grow, those reflections don't disappear, they multiply. The faces of friends, lovers, strangers, and even enemies continue to mirror back the unresolved pieces of our inner world. The adult who believes they are unworthy often finds themselves surrounded by those who confirm that belief. The one who secretly fears abandonment attracts people who leave. These are not coincidences, but psychological patterns revealing where healing is required. The mirror of others is not always kind. Sometimes it shows us qualities we admire but do not yet own. We project our dormant potential onto others, worshipping them for the strength, confidence, or freedom we have not yet allowed ourselves to embody. We call it admiration, but beneath it lies longing. When we are drawn to someone's light, it is because it reflects our own light, buried beneath layers of doubt. To truly integrate that reflection, we must stop idolizing and start realizing that what we see in them exists in us as a possibility waiting for permission. The mirror also shows us what we reject. The people we cannot stand, the ones who disturb or trigger us, often reveal parts of our psyche we've exiled. When we see arrogance, we might be confronting our own repressed pride. When we see weakness, it may remind us of our own vulnerability that we were taught to despise. Hatred, judgment, and irritation become portals to self-awareness if we dare to look through them instead of away from them. Every judgment we cast is a confession of something unhealed inside. What we condemn in others, we secretly fear or suppress within ourselves, but this truth is difficult to face. The ego resists the idea that what we dislike in others could be a mirror of our own unacknowledged qualities. It prefers separation to reflection. It says, I am nothing like them, unaware that denial only strengthens the connection. The more we push a quality away, the more it controls us from the shadows. The mirror never lies, it only reflects what we refuse to see. The world outside becomes the screen where the movie of our unconscious mind is projected. We think we are reacting to reality, but we are reacting to our interpretation of it, an interpretation written by past wounds and forgotten emotions as relationships, therefore, are not just emotional exchanges, they are mirrors of the soul. They bring to the surface what remains hidden. Every argument, every attraction, every moment of misunderstanding is an opportunity to discover what the unconscious is trying to reveal. The person who criticizes us might be awakening our unhealed need for approval. The one who abandons us may be reactivating the childhood memory of emotional neglect. And the one who loves us without condition challenges the part of us that still feels unworthy of love. The mirror of others is always active, reflecting not who they are, but who we are in relation to them. This awareness changes the way we view human interaction. We stop labeling people as toxic or perfect and start seeing them as teachers. Each encounter becomes an invitation to know ourselves more deeply. Even betrayal and rejection lose their bitterness when seen through this lens. They become mirrors showing us where we still depend on others to reflect our worth. When we reclaim that reflection, when we can see both our beauty and our darkness without needing another person to validate or reject it, we begin to move beyond projection. The mirror becomes clear rather than distorted. To understand the mirror of others is to realize that the outer world is not separate from the inner world. Every emotion we project onto someone else is energy that originates within. The universe uses relationship as a language through which the soul speaks to itself. When we understand this language, conflict becomes communication, attraction becomes awakening, and judgment becomes guidance. The people around us stop being threats or idols, and instead become mirrors through which the self learns to recognize its own reflection. There comes a moment in every human life when the parts we've buried begin to move on their own. The emotions we suppressed, the memories we silenced, the truths we denied, they do not disappear simply because we will them to. They sink into the depths of the psyche, into the realm of the shadow, and from there they wait. They wait until our conscious defenses weaken, until the facade begins to crack, and then they rise. This rising is not gentle. It comes as rage, resentment, anxiety, or sudden hatred that seems to have no source. It is the betrayal of the shadow, when the very parts of us we've tried to hide turn against us in their hunger to be seen. The shadow's betrayal begins quietly. It doesn't announce itself with chaos. It starts with subtle contradictions. You promise peace, but create conflict. You crave love, but push it away. You long for freedom, but sabotage every chance at it. The betrayal lies in the split, the war between who you think you are and who you truly are. When this gap widens, the unconscious begins to act out through behavior, emotion, and projection. What was once hidden begins to live on the surface, disguised as reaction. We call it bad luck, emotional turmoil, or other people's fault, but in truth, it is the shadow reclaiming its voice. The shadow's betrayal is not malicious. It is corrective. It reveals the imbalance we have created by denying half of our nature. Every suppressed emotion becomes a seed of distortion. Anger that is never felt becomes bitterness. Sadness that is never expressed turns into emotional numbness. Fear that is never faced transforms into control. Eventually, these distortions accumulate and leak through the cracks of our personality. The polite smile hides quiet hostility. The calm demeanor masks deep exhaustion, and the moral certainty conceals hidden desire. The betrayal occurs not because the shadow hates us, but because it refuses to be forgotten. When the shadow betrays, it doesn't attack from outside, it rises from within. It makes us say things we regret, destroy what we once cherished, or distance ourselves from people who mirror our truth too closely. It's as if the unconscious mind conspires to expose us, to strip away the pretense and reveal the wounds we've refused to feel. The betrayal, then, is not an act of cruelty, but of necessity. What we suppress for too long must eventually express itself, and if we refuse to do so consciously, it will erupt unconsciously through conflict, illness, or emotional collapse. The shadow betrays because repression is unsustainable. We cannot live forever pretending that half of us does not exist. Every human carries contradictions, light and dark, love and resentment, strength and fragility. To deny one side in favor of the other is to create an imbalance that demands correction. The psyche seeks wholeness, not perfection. When we cling to the illusion of purity, the shadow ensures that imperfection returns to claim its place. This is why those who strive hardest to appear good often face the deepest inner turmoil. The shadow does not vanish with virtue, it grows stronger in denial. This betrayal often unfolds through relationships. The shadow uses other people as mirrors to project what we cannot accept in ourselves. The friend we envy, the partner we resent, the stranger who triggers us, they all carry fragments of our unacknowledged nature. The conflict we feel toward them is not about them, it's the reflection of our own disowned emotions. The betrayal becomes visible when our relationships collapse under the weight of unspoken projections. We call it incompatibility or betrayal from others, but more often it is the internal betrayal surfacing through external form. The shadow exposes us to the people we blame. The betrayal also manifests as self-sabotage. When success feels unsafe, the shadow ensures we lose it. When intimacy feels threatening, the shadow pushes it away. The mind may say, "I want peace," while the unconscious whispers, "I want control." The hidden motives beneath our actions are the footprints of the shadow moving through us. Every time we act against our own interest without understanding why, we are witnessing the shadow's quiet rebellion. It refuses to be silenced by ideals or affirmations. It wants acknowledgement, not avoidance. The betrayal is simply its way of forcing attention back to what we've buried. The deeper tragedy of the shadow's betrayal is that it often masquerades as fate. People say, I keep attracting the same pain, or life keeps testing me, unaware that it is their own unintegrated energy creating these loops. The shadow repeats lessons until consciousness emerges. It will betray every illusion we cling to, the illusion of being the victim, the savior, the righteous, or the invulnerable. It tears down masks not to punish, but to liberate. What feels like destruction is the psyche's attempt to restore inner truth. The betrayal only hurts because it dismantles what is false, revealing the rawness. We've spent years protecting. The shadow's betrayal is the psyche's way of demanding unity. It pulls down the false walls between who we are and who we pretend to be. It is the silent law of the inner world that what we refuse to love within ourselves will one day rebel against us, not to ruin us, but to remind us that suppression is never peace. The betrayal of the shadow is not the end of control. It is the moment the truth we denied begins to reclaim its rightful place in the story of our becoming. There is a point in the human journey where awareness alone is no longer enough. Understanding our pain, our patterns, and our shadows intellectually offers clarity, but not freedom. The path to integration begins where analysis ends. At the moment we choose to embody what we have discovered, to feel what we have avoided, and to reconcile the inner division between who we show and who we are. Integration is not about perfection or purification. It is about wholeness. It is the slow, often painful process of uniting the fragments of the psyche into one living truth. For most of life, the self operates in parts. We have the self we show to the world, the competent, composed version that seeks approval and belonging. Then we have the hidden self, the emotional, reactive, insecure part that we conceal because it feels unsafe to reveal. These two selves exist in tension, and that tension becomes the root of much inner suffering. We pretend confidence while feeling fragile inside. We preach forgiveness while still harboring resentment. This internal split drains vitality because energy must constantly flow between pretending and repressing. Integration begins when we stop trying to choose between these two selves and start listening to both. To integrate is to invite contradiction without judgment. It means allowing light and shadow to coexist without demanding one erase the other. The anger that once terrified you becomes an ally when you understand what boundary it was trying to defend. The grief that once paralyzed you becomes a teacher when you realize it was love seeking expression. Integration transforms emotions from enemies into messengers. It asks you to sit in the tension of opposites, to hold pain without collapsing, to feel love without attachment, to experience fear without running. Every time you do this, the inner world expands to include what was once exiled. The path to integration often begins in discomfort. When we start facing what we've denied, the first sensations are unease and confusion. The old self resists, clinging to familiar patterns of avoidance. But discomfort is not regression. It is the body's way of adjusting to truth. The more we remain present with discomfort, the more the nervous system learns safety in authenticity. Integration is less about forcing transformation and more about creating space for suppressed energy to move freely again. In this space, emotions once labeled negative begin to dissolve into understanding. The shadow loses power not because it disappears, but because it is no longer denied a crucial part of integration, is taking back projection. The world constantly mirrors the aspects of ourselves we fail to acknowledge. We admire people who carry our unclaimed potential and resent those who display our repressed flaws. Every strong reaction toward another person is an invitation to see what within us resonates with them. Integration means withdrawing those projections, recognizing that at the source of emotional intensity lies within. When we reclaim what we have projected, we begin to retrieve lost fragments of our identity. Each reclaimed piece brings back strength, self-respect, and a deeper sense of coherence. Integration also requires forgiveness, not the sentimental kind, but the deep psychological act of releasing identification with the wound. Forgiveness, in this sense, means accepting that pain has shaped us but does not define us. It means acknowledging the humanity in those who hurt us and the unconsciousness in ourselves that allowed pain to persist. Through forgiveness, energy trapped in resentment becomes available again for creation and connection. To forgive is not to excuse, but to transcend the level of consciousness where the injury was sustained. It is a movement from reaction to understanding, from fragmentation to unity. The body, too, is part of this path. Emotions live not just in thought, but in muscle, breath, and heartbeat. Integration requires embodiment, feeling the sensations that accompany the stories we tell. When the body releases tension held for years, the psyche follows. Breathing through fear, softening through anger, or grounding through grief are not just physical acts, they are rituals of reconciliation. Each conscious breath reclaims territory once occupied by suppression. The body becomes the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, teaching the mind what safety feels like when wholeness is restored. True integration does not erase pain, it reassigns its meaning. The wounds become passages rather than prisons. The self becomes spacious enough to contain every contradiction without needing to hide. Wholeness is not the absence of darkness, but the presence of awareness within it. On this path, the question shifts from how do I fix myself to how can I include all that I am? The path to integration is the slow alchemy of turning rejection into acceptance, fear into understanding, and fragmentation into a living harmony that allows every inner voice to belong.